Hi, and welcome to an ActonTV Candidates Forum ahead of the town election in March. This forum is co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters. You will meet all 11 candidates on the March 30 Acton ballot. Each will begin with an opening statement. If they are in a competitive race, they will also be asked a few follow-up questions from the Acton Area League of Women Voters. My name is Mark Ducey. I'm the Executive Director of ActonTV, which serves the town. ActonTV is a nonprofit community media center and television studio. We operate the public, education, and government channels on local cable television. We also offer all of our videos on demand at actontv.org, as well as ActonTV's YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. My co-host today for this candidates forum is Lori Cooney from the League of Women Voters.
Thanks, Mark. The League would like to thank ActonTV and you for providing your venue and your expertise to produce this forum. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to give the elevator pitch for the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters celebrated its 100th anniversary this past year. It's a nonpartisan grassroots organization fully committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion in principle and practice. Because we are nonpartisan, we do not support candidates or political parties. However, we do take positions on issues. We welcome new members.
Now let's get started. We are going to begin with the school committee candidates. There are 4 candidates running for 2 open seats. Our first candidate tonight is Benjamin Bloomenthal. Hi, Ben. Thank you for volunteering to serve your town. You have 2 to 5 minutes to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mark and Lori, for the warm introduction. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Benjamin Bloomenthal, and I've lived here in Acton for over 10 years with my wife, Doranit, and son, Aaron, who's a 4th grader at the Cooney Elementary School. The reason why I'm running for school committee is that I believe that we are on the precipice of change in our town. Specifically, the old norms that were once acceptable are no longer acceptable. And as times change, we need leadership that embodies that change to be there. That being said, having worked for state government for nearly 20 years, both at the Office of the State Auditor and the MBTA, having taught in various religious schools in the area, and now currently working in research finance in the cardiovascular department at the Brigham and Women's Hospital, I feel I bring that unique perspective and leadership necessary to form in the form of finance, teaching, and research management to shepherd our community forward in these challenging times. Furthermore, as a student in the early 80s who benefited from having an IEP in the town of Weston, I can speak firsthand on the experiences I had and how important it is to have inclusive education that lifts everyone up, as I was a benefactor of that myself. Lastly, I'm involved in the community as a parent in my son's Cub Scout pack, along with the Acton Democratic Town Committee, along with other volunteer organizations in and around Acton. Therefore, on March 30th, I'm asking you for your vote, as I believe with my experience on the job and in the community will help serve you, the citizens of Acton, on the school committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you for volunteering to serve your town. We're going to ask you a few questions, and these are from the League of Women Voter Acton area. The first one you answered a little bit in your opening statement, but it is, why are you running and what relevant experience do you have for the job?
As I indicated, the reason why I'm running is that we are in so need of leadership within our town when it comes to the changes that we're seeing here in Acton. And with the 2 spots opening up on the school committee, I believe that now is the time for change, for big change here in Acton. So therefore, I'm running on a platform of, combating racism. And that comes in, various forms that we've seen in the town. And I'm sure we'll be talking about that later on in the interview, along with addressing the issues with COVID. And then lastly, where my, wheelhouse is with budgetary issues and ensuring that we complete the work that we've begun on both the Gates and Douglas hybrid school to ensure that we're on budget, on time, and that we can really introduce to the community a wonderful new school that will benefit not only the students, but the faculty and the staff who work there.
Okay, thank you. The next one does involve the current state of things. The school committee has had a difficult year managing the changing demands of COVID-19, responding to racist attacks on sitting school committee members, and concern that our students will have fallen behind and not able to make up for losses sustained during the pandemic. We'd like your thoughts on how to bring back a sense of normalcy to the students.
Well, as a parent, as I indicated, of a fourth grader at Conant, we're living through this on a daily basis in terms of trying to adjust to the new normal that is right now and how we return. So in terms of responding to your questions in order regarding racism, I'm concerned about the increase of racism, bigotry, and xenophobia here in town. In particular, the racist attacks over the past couple of years, along with the anti-Semitic attacks that we've seen in town, have left an indelible mark on our community, unfortunately. And we have a lot to do to ensure that Acton is truly a warm and welcoming place. I think that by being on the school committee and speaking out against these attacks forcefully and making sure that folks in the town who are most vulnerable should know that they have a partner in the school committee with me. In terms of COVID, like all other parents, I'd love to see my son return to school 5 days a week. I believe that it's possible to do. However, in order to do so, we need to rely on the expertise of our public health experts, along with working with our school committee members and also working with the faculty in order to bring the kids back, hopefully this year, because it would be nice to see schools back in order. And then lastly, in terms of, I believe it was the budgetary, what was the final question again? I'm sorry.
The pandemic, the COVID-19, and we asked the pandemic twice.
Okay.
So yeah.
Excellent. So in conclusion, I think we can bring a sense of normalcy back by working together, bringing in our public health experts, working with various community organizations to continue to address racism, bigotry, and xenophobia in our town in order to hopefully by next year see some semblance of normalcy and to see our schools fully functioning and operational as a warm and welcoming place in our community.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is about the role of the school committee. What do you believe the two most important roles for the school committee is, and what skills do you have to meet those challenges?
So I think the most important role is being a partner with our parents, a partner with the parents in our community to ensure that they know that their children are being held within the best interest of the school committee. And in terms of my leadership or my experience, again, nearly 20 years of public service leadership in both the state auditor's office and the MBTA, I've had the opportunity to go through and look at controlling legislation, looking at budgets, reconciling budgets together to ensure that we meet the letter of the law, especially when it came to issues of equity at the MBTA and transit ridership. I would apply those same principles and that same diligence to ensure that there is fair equity and treatment of all students throughout our community to ensure that they get the best education possible. And then lastly, I believe that my leadership roles throughout the community here in Acton and in my professional workplaces have allowed me to really step up to the plate and do the work necessary in order to facilitate that change necessary here in town.
Great. Okay, so you're to the end. The last question is there something about ABRSD that you would change, and how would you go about doing it?
I think the thing that I would like to see change the most is I'd like to see the temperature lowered within the community. As somebody who has a child in school and has seen a lot of folks adversely impacted by, for example, the mascot issue, I believe now is the time to move forward and really reconcile with one another. To me, the increased temperature that we see in the town and the two sides fighting amongst each other really impacts our kids the most. And by coming together as a community and lifting each other up, lifting as we climb, as one of my mentors said at the MBTA, I believe that we really can create change within our town in order to ensure that everybody's treated fairly, equitably, and kindly. And that to me is the most important thing that I would like to see.
Great. Thank you so much for kicking this forum off. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us.
My pleasure.
Okay, our next candidate is Kara Osselmann. She's running for school committee. Kara, go ahead and introduce yourself. You have 2 to 5 minutes.
Hello, Lori. It's really nice to be here tonight. It is really nice to be running for school committee, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Kara Osselmann. I moved to this community of Boxborough in 2003 with my husband. At the time, we had an 18-month-old child, and here we are. In the meantime, I have a freshman in college and 2 children in the high school. So time truly does fly when you're having fun, and it has been a lot of fun. So our 3 children went through grade school at Blanchard, which was just a wonderful grade school for them to go through. They had warm, caring teachers. They had a wonderful faculty. Then they had a high degree of parent involvement, and they had and I was a class parent for much of that time, and that was a real joy of parenthood for me. That was a really great time. We moved to Acton about 3.5 years ago. We wanted to be closer to the middle school and the high school, and I have to say, that's been great fun. I mean, it's been a privilege to live in both Boxborough and cross the border into Acton and see how Acton lives. So that's just been, we've been very fortunate like that. So as I said, we had a high schooler graduate in 2020 during COVID, and even that was a good experience. I mean, the community made that a good experience. So here we are with 2 children still in the high school, and we're just going along. As far as my educational background is concerned, I studied as an undergraduate in philosophy and German and history, and then I wanted to start a master's degree in philosophy. And so I went to the University of Glasgow in Scotland, where Adam Smith of the famed Invisible Hand taught. So that was a good pursuit. And I thought I would stay there. However, during that year, the Berlin Wall fell. And based on discussions with my father and certain family obligations, I decided to apply for a fellowship at the University of Berlin. So I did in fact do that, and I finished a master's degree in philosophy at the University of Berlin in conjunction with SUNY at Albany, which was my home university. So once that was over, I had learned a lot, and that led to an interest in getting an MBA at the University of Rochester. So that's where I finished my formal education, with an MBA at the University of Rochester. After a stint in high-tech marketing at a company in Stuttgart, I came back to the Boston area, where I married my husband. We had our first child, and then subsequently moved to Boxborough and now Acton. So that is how I find myself here. My educational experience will help me serve the community as a member of the school committee, but even more important than that is my experience as a parent. And Acton Boxborough has been a wonderful community and a wonderful school for our 3 children. And I would like to give back, and I would like to serve the community as a member of the school community. And I also think based on the time that I've been here and the issues that I have witnessed since I've been here, I mean, you know, there's a lot going on in the world right now. And I think that's reflected in our school and in our community. And I also think that now that my children are a little bit older, I finally have, you know, some bandwidth where I can actually contribute to the greater community through serving on a school committee.
Okay, thank you, Kara. So you answered a little bit in your opening statement, but our first question is, why are you running? And what relevant experience do you have for the job?
Well, the relevant experience I have for the job is the experience of living in this community for almost 20 years. I mean, this community has changed a lot during this time, but the fact that it remains a wonderful place to live and to put your kids through school. I mean, my experience is a lived experience. I mean, I also have a strong and robust educational background that will contribute and has contributed to the lives of, you know, the people I've come in contact with in this community. But it's a way for me to serve and a way for me to give back to this school that has given our family a lot. You know, my kids are very happy and successful, and that's in large part due to the schools here.
Great. Okay. So the school committee has had a difficult year managing changing demands of COVID-19, responding to the racist attacks on sitting school committee members, and concern that our students will have fallen behind and not able to make up for losses sustained in the pandemic. What are your thoughts on how to bring back a sense of normalcy?
Well, Lori, you have covered a lot in that question. You have COVID-19, you have racism, and you have the losses in the time that the children are experiencing. Those are each one of those is a large topic and a large question. I feel like, you know, the quicker we can get our community and our teachers vaccinated, and the quicker that we can get the children back in school, that is going to lead to a sense of normalcy. All three of these are extremely important aspects of your question, but the losses in school time, I think, are what many parents are struggling with right now. And I would like to listen to any ideas the community has. I do not think additional screen time is the answer to that for our children. I think they have been suffering with that. And so the question remains, how do we best bring them up to speed, especially in you know, subjects that generally take more time, like mathematics and harder, you know, harder topics for them. So I am actively involved in thinking about what is the best thing to do. And I would like to work with the community in order to find a solution to all of those problems, including the racism that this community has experienced.
Great, you're halfway there. There's only two more questions. What do you believe are the two most important roles the school committee plays? Two most important roles the school committee plays, and what attributes or specific skills do you have to meet those challenges?
Well, I think one large role that the school committee plays, it's a place where everything in the community comes to the table, right? There are just concerns that parents have in having, you know, their children are generally the most precious things to them. So the children come into an interface in the school in a public way for the first time. So you have the issues of young children, parents giving up their young children from the home into the school. And then you have the problem, well, the issue in the high school of parents sending their children from this long, you know, cocoon-like place into the greater world. So you have the children coming into the school system, and then you have them going out into the wider world. And I think the school committee is the central place where, you know, all the topics come up. You know, everybody in the community needs to feel like they have a place where they can come and bring their concerns to the table. And the school community, the biggest role that I can play, And generally, the role that I play is listening to stakeholders, listening to each person and their concerns that they have, and then bringing them into a forum, into the public sphere, where they can be, addressed and heard and solved.
Lori, you're muted.
So sorry. Thank you, Mark. Is there something about ABRSD that you would change, and how would you go about doing that?
Boy, this is a great question. I mean, yes, I would like to affect incremental change. I would like to take each of these problems that the school has and change them for the better. I would like equity. I would like inclusiveness. I would like no bullying. I would like a strong commitment to mental health. I would like incremental change and improvement. I mean, large incremental change and improvement on all of those issues. However, when you ask me, is there anything I would change completely? No, there's no it's not like we have any large faults that need to be changed. I mean, Boston Magazine even, we're ranked #1 now, for what that's worth. I mean, it's a great community and it's a great school, and we need to affect improvements and we need to affect some change. But as far as, large systemic change other than say racism, yes, I would like to have large systemic change on that issue, and I would like to make improvements on all of these issues.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all we need from you tonight. Thanks for serving your town.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you so much. And please vote for me in the townwide election on March 30th.
Okay, our next candidate for school committee is Andrew Schwartz. Thank you, Andrew, for volunteering for your town. We would like you to introduce yourself to the voters. You have 2 to 5 minutes, so go whenever you're ready.
Thanks, Lori. Thanks for having me. Thank you for inviting me to this discussion. I think the work that the league does to promote voting and inform the electorate is incredibly important. My name's Andrew Schwartz, and I'm running for a seat in the Acton-Boxborough School Committee. As a proud parent of 4 boys in the district, I believe we're at an incredible inflection point in learning. And I want to help our district become a place where our kids can thrive. We've lived in Acton for about 3 years, having lived previously in Waltham and in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we're impressed. This is an amazing area. We have neighbors who were born here and who were born in other countries, who span dozens of cultures and religions, and who have come together to make Acton a great example of what really makes this country great. And our 13-year-old is in 7th grade at R.J. Gray. I've got a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old who are at Douglas. They're attending the remote learning program currently, and our 5-year-old has spent the past year in mommy preschool. My wife, Julie, and I have both found an opportunity to become involved in areas in our town. My wife, Julie, is involved with the Douglas PTO. She's on the board of Acton-Boxborough Youth Baseball. I'm on the school councils of both Douglas and R.J. Gray, and I might possibly be Doug the Eagle. My background is in strategic consulting. It really is about finding solutions to nagging problems. I've owned my own businesses. I've established and run innovation labs for Fortune 5 companies. I've been a midwife for startups. I've worked in the agency world and in healthcare and financial services and entertainment and non-government organizations. I love solving problems. And I think that the world's full of natural and artificial barriers. Natural barriers are important. They're like laws and regulations and restrictions. The artificial ones are the ones that stop us because we've always done things in a certain way. They're the politics, the good enoughs, the always dones. Those need to be barreled through. And that experience has brought me this perspective on how to help communities like ours. I've had the privilege of sitting on boards for Ohio Valley Voices, an oral deaf school outside of Cincinnati in Ohio. I'm on the board for My Weekday School, a preschool in Lexington, Massachusetts. And I'm running for school committee here, because I want to help. I think this past year has been an opportunity for us to look at everything we do with new eyes, from snow days to educational tools to the role that technology plays in education. Cultural challenges outside of our schools have brought focus to inequities, to hatred and racism, anti-Semitism. And our best path to fight against those darker forces is through education. I think building a safe environment for learning, safe from infection, safe from hatred, safe from insecurities, safe for mental health is a worthy goal. So I'm running for school committee. I want to help create the strongest district we can where our kids are able to thrive.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we are going to ask you a few questions. These are questions from the Acton Area League of Women Voters. Every candidate is getting the same question. And the first question is, why are you running and what relevant experience do you have for the job? You touched on that in your opening statement, so you might answer, why are you running now? Go ahead.
I am running now for school committee because I think I can bring some of my experience and insight into solving these new problems. Parents and administrators, teachers, we're all partners in creating great learning environments. Our job is to give the kids the tools they need to be the best people they can. Our schools are the center of our community. They connect us. They can make us stronger and they build our future. But when our schools work, our kids get a love of learning and the tools to explore their own curiosities and the environment where they can grow in incredible ways. And the school committee helps create the foundation for those results. I think that I can bring my experience in working against these artificial barriers that I mentioned earlier, working through the respective issues we have, to be able to partner with the teachers, the staff, the administrator, other parents, to create a place where it's more than just a job about budgetary reviews and policy exploration. It's about setting the tone for how we together can create a district where we're all able to have our students become their best selves. I think that I can help in this way because of what I've done in my past. And I'm hopeful to be able to help out again at this time.
Okay, great. The school committee has had a difficult year managing changing demands of COVID-19, responding to racist attacks on city and school committee members, and concern that our students have fallen behind and may not be able to make up for losses sustained in this pandemic. We'd like your thoughts on how to bring back a sense of normalcy.
Yeah, a sense of normalcy is an interesting way of putting it. It's not actual normalcy. We're not going to go back to what 2019 was. The best thing that we can do is look at where we are now, what we've gone through, and how we can go through it. COVID's pushed everyone to our limits. Safety of our educators and students, they have to be our first priority. Falling behind is an interesting issue. Falling behind, everyone has fallen behind from what we expected things to be, but everyone's on the same path now. I think that through a concerted effort of being able to understand where we are currently and looking at how we can plan for this next school year, we can get back up to speed, both educationally and emotionally. We have to keep at the forefront of all of this our safety, our mental health. And to touch on the racism and the hatred that came through, it's abhorrent. I'm Jewish. I grew up in a community where I'd go to the swimming pool on weekends and I'd see the older folks who had numbers on their arms. And it always crossed my mind that, what a person is not worth talking about, but who they are is where you're able to build the real understanding of them. And I think that everything that we can do to not only stand up to the people who are going to push against, but also to help our kids understand the history and the value and the power that they have to fight hatred and racism and anti-Semitism and anti-religionism and anti-multiculturalism is important. And I think it has a giant spot in the center of our schools.
Okay, thank you. What do you believe the two most important roles the school committee plays? And then if you have, what attributes or skills do you have to help with those?
I think one of the most important things the school committee can do is help make the system work so that the parents can work the system. Our school committee creates the environment for our school district. It creates the environment through budget. It creates the environment through policy. It creates the environment through tone. It creates the environment through understanding the relationship between all the different parties. By working to be able to create a great environment for the system to work, the parents and the students are able to find their spot and use the system as tools to be able to engage their kids so that they can be as successful as possible.
Okay, last question. Is there something about ABRSD that you would change, and how would you go about doing it?
I think we've got an opportunity to look fresh with everything that we're doing. And by looking fresh, I think it's important for us to look at how the structure is laid out, look at what we can do to create new efficiencies. We've had this year when everything's been paused and we've been able to look, like I said earlier, with new eyes to how we do things. I think we can take that as an opportunity to make everything a bit stronger moving forward. We can look at the way that our community utilizes our resources. look at the way that we're using tools to navigate around snow days and sick days. We can look at every aspect of the way the schools are laid out so that we can create a better environment for our kids to be able to learn and thrive, so that when they get through all of this and we create our new normalcy, we're able to live in a better world because of it. We have this opportunity now to be able to innovate, to be able to iterate, to be able to break down the barriers of things that we thought were holding us back, and to create a way of having a better use of all of our resources, our relationships, and our educational tools.
And because we have a few seconds left with this question, how would you start to do that? Like,
I think,
what steps would you take?
Like with anything, you have to start by understanding the environment that you have currently. Measurement, understanding, looking through, doing research to understand not only what the teachers are seeing, what the kids are feeling, what the parents are expecting, and what the DESE and the organizations around our district are interested in. Doing an evaluation of that gives you an idea of where opportunities may exist, because not only are we looking at what we've been doing, we look at where we have some white space to define. Inside that white space, we can look at additional tools, policies, processes, what have you. That opportunity to express what's going on outside of what we've already been doing is where the opportunity can really foster. Looking and see what other districts are doing, whether opportunities have popped up for other groups, allows us to be able to play in that same space. And then to create a plan as we go into perhaps this next year to look at what we can learn from what's gone on this year, to take the best of what's happened here, to take the best of what we had before, merge it together to come up with something that is new and effective for our kids. Because ultimately that's the story here. We're not doing this. I'm not involved in this because I want to, get my name bigger or to be more prominent in the community. I'm doing this because I think I can help express the needs that we have inside this district to make it better for our kids, so that when my kids go off to college and they're able to build families and they have kids of their own, they can look back on the tools they learned to use while they were at AB and become more successful.
All right. Thank you very much, Andrew. Thanks a lot.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Our next candidate for school committee is Dani Feng Zeng. She is going to give us an opening statement. So Dani, whenever you're ready, you have 2 to 5 minutes.
Self-introduction, like telling our audience who I am. Okay. Yeah, my name is Dani, and I was born in China, came to the US in 2002. I remember that it was Christmas Eve when my airplane took off from Beijing. And I came here with my husband. My husband at that time was hired as a research scientist at University of Illinois. So we lived in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, the campus of the university, for 6 years. My 2 children were born there. And before that, after that, we moved to Texas, Houston, and lived there for 19 months. Then we finally settled in Massachusetts. Yeah, so this is this is 10th year when I am in Acton. And before I came to USA, I worked as an editor, Chinese textbook editor in Beijing. I worked for 5 years, and after I came to USA, I dedicated 16 years or 5 years to my family, raising 3 kids. Starting from 2017, that was 4 years ago, I gradually returned to work, starting from contract job as a community interpreter, Mandarin to English. I also worked for Leahy Hospital, as a medical translator and interpreter, part-time. Right now, I'm looking for a full-time teaching position. I would say myself a dedicated educator. When I was in China, I was a teacher And then I became a education material editor, and I homeschooled my kids for 2 to 3 years. And right now, I just accomplished my second master degree at Brandeis University, teaching Chinese at college. So I'm already back to society and see what I can give. I would say myself as passionate in defending democracy. The reason why I came from a country without democracy, and that's a whole reason I come to USA.
Okay, great.
Do you have any question?
Yeah, no, so why are you running for school committee, and what experience do you have, relevant experience do you have for the job?
Yeah, as I mentioned in my opening statement, I taught Chinese in China, and I worked for an educational publisher, and I homeschooled my kids, and I also, occasionally volunteer at school, my kids' school. So, in my life, I see how education it is in shaping our society, in bringing people out of poverty, and also I would say education. In my perspective, education helps in shaping a democratic society. Yeah, I feel it is my calling to run this campaign to participate in decision making and in the society. School education is such an important part in every resident, in every family that live in Acton. So I came from China, and it is our tradition to emphasize and value education.
Okay, great. Our second question. The school committee has had a difficult year managing the changing demands of COVID-19, responding to racist attacks on city school committee members, and concerned that our students will have fallen behind and not be able to make up for the losses sustained in the pandemic. We would like your thoughts on how to bring back a sense of normalcy.
I have 3 kids. Yeah. One is in one is in elementary school in 5th grade. And the second one is in 9th grade. The third one, actually, I think my oldest one is in 11th grade. So I see to myself that children are facing stress to deal with in a different learning mode, which they have never faced before. And it is especially difficult for my youngest child, the 5th grade, the one who is in 5th grade. Yeah, she is, in the past, we always restrict her time, her screen time. Right now, she have to spend, I say 5 hours, 4 hours a day. Yeah, as a part of regular school time at her regular school time in front of the screen. And she doesn't really, sometimes she doesn't really feel she is learning or she is at school. She feels like, the virtual school kind of, I said, detach her. I can see that detach her from real learning. And my oldest kids, the kids are in high school, are doing better. So I strongly, advocate school go back to normal as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. What do you believe the two most important roles of the school committee are? And what skills do you have to meet those challenges?
To be honest, I have never participated in such an organization or institute before. And I would say I have expectation for school committee, and I have my own vision of what it should look like and what it should do, how it should function, how it should help to bring our society a better place. I would say first, yeah, my ideas, my thoughts might change as or be modified after I actually participate in the discussion of the committee meetings. But right now, I would say, as an outsider of school committee member of the school committee, I wish, yeah, school committee can help in shaping the community and how integrate parents' involvement, engagement in decision making. It acts like I would say, a channel, a communication channel, a conduit. Yeah, to connect with parents, students, and school teachers and administrators. We have all the ears open and listen from them. Yeah.
Okay, final question.
Yes.
Is there something about ABRSD that you would change, and how would you go about doing it?
As we all know, Acton, Boxborough, especially Acton, is a town has a diversity of cultures. And according to I just looked at the demographics of Acton, I realized 25% Asian population takes 25%. That's a quarter. And how many languages? There are more than 5 languages are spoken in our community. On the top are Chinese, and what else? Indian, and Russian, Korean, Portuguese, French, African languages, Japanese, and there are also Vietnamese, Hungarian, and Polish spoken in this community. I would like to see see deeper, more meaningful cultural integration built in this society. Not skin deep, like skin deep, like stereotype of Chinese eating dumplings, Japanese eating sushi. I really want to see it goes deep and set roots in our community.
Okay, thank you very much, Dani. That does it.
Okay.
So Dani was our final school committee member. Again, there are 2 positions open and there are 4 candidates, Andrew, Kara, Ben, and Dani. And it is a 3-year term, so make sure that you get out to the polls on March 30th. Okay, we are going to move on to Board of Selectmen candidates now. We have 2 candidates running for 1 position. It's a 3-year term. Our first candidate today is Fran Arsenault. And hi, Fran, if you could just introduce yourself to the Acton voters, you have 2 to 5 minutes.
Hi there. I have been in Acton for quite some time. I've been a volunteer and an engaged citizen the entire time I've lived in Acton, starting with volunteering in my daughter's school when my children were young. I now serve on the Historic District Commission and on the steering committee of Racial Justice for Black Lives. Racial Justice for Black Lives is a local racial group that formed after the murder of George Floyd. Being a part of this group has helped me learn and grow as a person and a community member, it has also made me recognize the work we have to do as a community to denounce racism in our town. I've learned a lot about my town standing on a corner. Racial Justice for Black Lives is currently working to find better ways to assist community members. I can't stress enough how being a part of this group has been such a positive and personal learning experience, and I am passionate about making Acton a welcoming and safe place for all residents. I'm running for the Acton Board of Selectmen because I have a diverse set of skills that I've developed in my years of volunteering, attending town meetings and board meetings, and also as a realtor. I chose my career because of the things that are very important to me, which are building relationships, helping people, and creating community. Being responsible for helping individuals through the home selling or buying process can be very intense, intimate, and a complex process in a very short period of time. You are listening, advising, and learning about an individual's specific needs and wants, negotiating on behalf of those individuals, and finally delivering. I know how to get things done. If elected to the board, I would bring listening skills, empathy, and the goal of offering all community members a seat at the table. I also think the town governing body should be a reflection of its community and be made up of men, women, and people of color, a diverse collective body of members making decisions and creating policy as a team. That's why I'm hopeful for Acton's future with the newly formed commission, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusivity Commission, that has been charged with the task of documenting racism in Acton. I've attended most of their meetings since they began, and attending these meetings has given me the appreciation of the hard work that has been placed on the Black, Asian, and people of color that are working so hard on this commission. The work is ongoing, therefore this commission should also last more than the 1-year period it has been granted. Part of the campaign process that I have really enjoyed has been meeting with community members via Zoom. We've been hosting meet and greets, which has been a great way for community members to learn a little about me and for me to learn about issues that are important to a wide variety of Actonians. And some of the topics we discuss are, concern about the Kmart parcel. And as you all know, the Kmart parcel has been empty for almost a year, and the McDonald's space close to 13 or 14 years. And as a board member, I would take filling that space seriously and fill it with something that meets the needs of the community. What I've heard from community members is a longing for a gathering space, such as a community center, from others, low-cost shopping, and some folks express the idea of mixed-use buildings, lower level for retail with housing above. And in addition to the Kmart parcel, we need to focus on all the other empty storefronts in town. We need to find creative ways to determine what's important to the residents and to figure out ways to attract businesses. Currently, I know that an Asian market is going into the Old Willow book space, which I think is a great use of that space. And we need to bring more specialty shops like that to town. And I know affordable housing is also a hot topic. As a realtor, I know that developers benefit greatly from building 40B developments. And under the 40B law, they're able to skirt local town zoning to create developments under the guise of affordable housing, which results in developers making a huge profit on the units and houses that are not so affordable for many people. Another issue that's talked about is climate change, and there are many ways to address the climate emergency. Many strategies and tactics are already being engaged by the town, including reducing the human impact of fossil fuels and material waste. I fully support the long list of projects that Acton's Green Advisory Board is promoting, and I fully support the Acton Climate Coalition's efforts to stop the increase in natural gas use. And in closing, being on the Historic District Commission shows my commitment to preserving Acton's rich history. My passion for working against racism and other current issues illustrates my commitment to working with a diversity of Actonians who live here. I humbly ask for your vote to serve on the Board of Selectmen so I can be part of moving Acton forward to meet the challenges of 2021. Thank you.
Okay, so our first question is why are you running and what relevant experience do you have for the job? I think you explained your experience pretty well, but I think it would be good to address why you chose to run for Board of Selectmen right now.
So I made the decision specifically watching the board form the charge around racism in Acton. I think that we need to have much more progressive ideas and aggressive work towards denouncing racism.
Okay. Our second question kind of is a little bit about that. The Selectmen have had a difficult year managing changing demands on COVID-19, responding to racist and anti-Semitic incidents, and addressing the needs of the community facing financial challenges. We'd like your thoughts on how the town moves forward out of COVID, the racist incidents, and the financial challenges. How do we move forward united?
So I think that once the pandemic, when people start getting vaccinated and I think COVID maybe eases up a little bit, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I think that will remove some of the anxiety and stress. I think the DEIC has been handling, they have a full plate and are working for the town to tackle, documenting racism in town. And I think that will be a big help. And also the financial struggles of people in town. As far as, I don't know, I know that there are some sort of tax relief programs for elderly folks, which can be taken advantage of. And I know that the current board has done a great job with grants for businesses in town. So hopefully we'll slowly move out of the fog.
Okay, great. You listed a lot of priorities. Can you name a couple that are your top priorities and how you are going to go about implementing them?
Just briefly, my top priority is if I were elected, I would work with the DEIC and continue their charge. They're only charged for a year, and I think that this is something that should continue. I think that working with the town on racism is ongoing. It's almost never ending, and educating, maybe having forums. The DEIC is working on a survey for the town, which will be great data to gather. That really is one of my top priorities, along with bringing businesses back to town and finding creative ways to do that. I've been ducking into various meetings, which is so easy to do with Zoom, and the Economic and Development Committee has great ideas. I think people are really centered around Kmart. So it'll be interesting what comes out of that.
Yeah. Okay, our next question is about Kmart. Now that Kelly's Corner project is all but approved, what is your take on the Kmart property, how it should be used? And you kind of mentioned what you thought would happen. So I guess I would add to that, how would you attract those businesses?
So I think the community has to figure out what they want to do with that parcel. I mean, it's not owned by Acton. Stop and Shop owns the parcel, so we don't have control over it. I think that, like I said earlier, community members have opinions, and it would be great to have some sort of formal survey to see what people feel about that. And I know that for having housing, or even mixed use housing with retail on the bottom, the zoning would have to be changed for that parcel.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Last question. How would you balance the desire to preserve the rural character of Acton and the acquisition of open space with the need for affordable housing and expansion of racial diversity in town?
So this is the $1 million question. I've spent a lot of time being frustrated by the building that's been going on, as far as, houses from the 1700s being demolished and 6 houses go up in its place. And I understand the need for affordable housing, but I also understand that there is a need for even more affordable housing that's offered under the 40B statute. I think that possibly looking into the reuse of buildings and maybe making multiple units in one dwelling is an option. I even think that maybe the town can get creative with some sort of condo buy program where they would buy lower costing condos to add to the affordable housing stock. I know the town doesn't like to, I heard them say they don't like to be landlords or own properties, but they've certainly bought parcels way beyond the cost of what buying a few condos under $200,000 would cost.
Okay, that does it. Thank you much. Thank you so much, Fran, for volunteering to serve your town.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, our next Board of Selectmen candidate is a current Board of Selectmen, Jon Benson. Thank you for joining us today. We would like to have you give an introductory statement, and you have 2 to 5 minutes. So whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Lori. So I wish to thank the League of Women Voters Acton area and ActonTV for co-hosting this year's candidate forum for the 2021 town election. It's a tough time to be an elected official. We are working our way through the second year of a pandemic and coming to terms with the sensitive and complex issue of race. The uncertainties of daily life continue with the hope we will be in a better place this time next year. We owe thanks to our municipal staff and first responders whose work has continued unabated, and many have seen their duties increased. We owe thanks to our teachers who've adapted on the fly and done everything possible to maintain Acton's excellence in education. And we owe thanks to our residents who, through the first 2 quarters of this fiscal year, have allowed us to achieve a 99% real estate tax collection rate, which accounts for 92% of our municipal revenue. The Board of Selectmen serve the entire town and not just the people who voted for them or those who agree with them. So an essential quality of an effective selectman is coming to the position with no personal agenda, an open mind, and an ability to work with fellow board members. Much of the work involves balancing interests, making trade-offs, and reaching practical solutions for real-life community needs. Take, for instance, the issue of limiting development. Here we must consider the importance of making housing available that will serve individuals at different stages of life and with diverse financial means. while at the same time preserving important open space parcels and planning for the impact of climate change. It's no simple thing to weigh all of these interests while maintaining a practical mindset in serving the best interests of the entire community. But that's what the Board of Selectmen and town staff must do every day. I have enjoyed working with the 4 men and 3 women who have been my colleagues on the board in my first term. Together, we adopted a sustainability policy for the town and authorized the hiring of the town's first sustainability director. We created a diversity, equity, and inclusivity commission. We achieved the 10% 40B affordable housing threshold. We acquired 8 acres along Piper Lane to connect portions of the Great Hill Conservation and Recreation lands. Personally, I take satisfaction in my leadership role in the outreach efforts to secure town meeting funding for first the Kelly's Corner infrastructure project in 2019 and 2020, with the Massachusetts Department of Transportation assuming the full $450,000 appropriation in 2019 on account of town meeting's 89% vote in favor of the article. And the North Acton Fire Station in 2019, a project dating back to the 1970s. And finally, the Small Business Grant Program in 2020, providing up to $4,000 to each of $4,000 each in badly needed funds to 43 local businesses due to the pandemic. First and foremost, if reelected to a second term, I will work with my colleagues and the town manager to inform and reassure the public on the COVID-19 pandemic. We all hope 2021 will bring about gradually improving circumstances. I also look forward to receiving and implementing the recommendations of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusivity Commission, recruiting the next generation of diverse Actonians to serve on town boards and committees, and maintaining the 10% 40B housing affordability threshold achievement after the 2020 census updates. Also overseeing the implementation of the new 2020 housing production plan and reaffirming our commitment as a town to affordable housing. It has been an honor to serve the community during the past 3 years. I am very grateful for the continuing support of many in the community and the endorsements of over 25 current and past leaders of the community. Thank you again to the League of Women Voters and ActonTV.
Okay, thank you, Jon. Now we have a few questions for you. They're the same questions. We're asking each candidate the same questions, and they're questions from the League of Women Voters.
Sure.
So the first one is, why are you running for a second term, and what relevant experience do you have? You answered some of that in your opening statement, but that's the question.
Well, okay. When I first ran for this in 2018, I had retired, and my mind was still clear. All of the energy was still there. I participated in town government, over the years, but I just didn't have the time commitment to be a selectman. And so I, the last 6 months of 2017, I sort of wound down my practice and started campaigning and meeting people, and the response was far more favorable than I thought. And what is so I've been so appreciative about is that I couldn't have anticipated how much I have enjoyed the work, the projects we've undertaken, the results we were able to achieve, the new friendships I've been able to make, new people that we've brought into town government. So I'd like to do it for 3 more years, and that'll be it.
Okay, had to get off mute. The second question is, The Selectmen have had a difficult year managing the changing demands of COVID-19, responding to racist and anti-Semitic incidents, and addressing the needs of community members facing financial challenges. We'd like your thoughts on how to move the town forward united.
Well, okay. We have got to confront the issue of race. I mean, the events out in Minneapolis, the death of George Floyd in police custody, forced the country as a whole and Acton as a community to recognize there are 400 years of racism and discrimination. And while we have been, an incredibly diverse community, if you go back to, say, 1960, where it was a small, sleepy, old Yankee New England farm town of 6,000 people. And basically it was two roads, 128 and 495, that brought considerable change to the community. It brought in, engineers, first generation engineers, many first generation college graduates. And along with the teachers, the young teachers, it created the Acton Boxborough school system. And in turn, it brought in Catholics, Jews, Indians, Chinese, and it's been a very diverse community, all for the better. We have got to confront the issue of racism and discrimination on a national level, and locally. It's the negative Black stereotyping that has just remained prevalent for these many hundreds of years. And one of this is my thought on it. Other people can have different ideas, but we have got to get. And I would ask, Black parents, in the system, to come in to the school system and explain to students, whether it's in classes, in assemblies, in small groups, what the N-word means. What's its history? Why is it so destructive? And I would say on the same level, and I think this is where somebody like Rabbi Mike Brothbaum could really help out, on the same level, make those same presentations as to what the swastika means. And the history of it, and the murdering of 6 million Jews during World War II. So that's how I would like to approach it.
Okay, thank you. What are your top priorities in Acton, and how would you go about implementing them?
Well, as I stated before, we charge the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusivity Commission with finding problems, posing solutions. Their report is due in the fall, and it's our job to review the report, hear further from the committee, and implement, those recommendations. And my colleague David Martin, is chairing that group. The other pieces that we need to, deal with in the second term is housing. If we're truly going to be a diverse community, and this goes, if we're really going to stand by the notion that we are, for racial justice and Black Lives Matter, as a community, we've got to make housing, affordable to those minorities of lesser financial and economic means, and not stand by the old stoppers of, oh, there's too much congestion, traffic, it's not the right size, it's not in the rural character of the town. That's really going to be our true test in the next a couple of years, and I think we'll be committed as a town to deal with it. The governor, in his recent economic development bill, which he signed into law, and I believe gained the support of all members of our legislative delegation, zoning changes in certain areas will be simpler. Multifamily housing within a half mile of the commuter rail station would be subject to a special permit so long as 10% of the housing is affordable housing. So those are the, those are key things that I'd like to work on over the next 3 years.
Okay, great. This is a forum in Acton, so you knew this question was coming. Now that Kelly's Corner project is all but approved, what is your take on how the Kmart property should be used?
Well, okay, I had to, there is a, let me just sort of, there is a developer that will be coming forward with a proposal to see if the town would have interest in it. As I understand, it's basically it's 115 to 120 units of senior living, assisted living, and memory care, continuum of care facility. And he will be presenting that proposal, to the selectmen probably over the course of the next month. That proposal would require a special permit. A couple of things that are important with respect to Kelly's Corner, the Kmart parcel. One, we don't own it, and there's little interest among the boards and groups in town to spend $6 million to buy the parcel without knowing what we're going to do with it. Two, what we all had wanted, what our vision was, is a bunch of a good selection of retail stores and restaurants. Retail was having problems a couple of years ago. The pandemic has only exacerbated it. So that market is dead. So we're confronted with what are the realities of Kelly's Corner. If something nice goes in there, and if I understand this developer's proposal, there will be about 8,000 to 10,000 feet of shopping and restaurants. If something nice goes in there, I think that would encourage a developer to get a checkbook out and perhaps buy the parcels across the street, the Midas Muffler parcel, the bowling alley parcel, and perhaps work with Vinnie Catone on the land behind there. But it's the infrastructure project and the infrastructure project and Kmart are key pieces here.
Okay, this is the last question.
Sure.
And thank you again for volunteering your time for the town and for participating in this forum.
Thank you.
How would you balance the desire to preserve the rural character of Acton and the acquisition of open space with the need of affordable housing and expansion for racial diversity in town? You kind of touched on this in your priorities.
Well, I touched on it in some detail as an example of what the selectmen do every day. We have to balance interests, and the question of limiting development covers all of that. How do you balance need for diversity in housing, both for seniors and affordable housing, people who want to stay in town but downsize, dealing with people of diverse financial interests, while at the same time preserving open space parcels and assessing the impact of climate change. And I think, as again, going back to, the George Floyd death in Minneapolis, it awakened us a lot. And I think a lot of, people are looking at now, okay, let's buy up open space, but can we just leave it open? Is there some commitment we have as a community to use part of that space to build affordable housing? And part of a piece of the governor's economic development law would allow for a zoning change. It goes from a 2/3 vote to a 50% vote to allow that type of zoning. So those are the things we really have to think about. But it's something. It's a lot of people are taking more note that it's not just buying open space. It's got to be coupled with a commitment to use part of that land to to satisfy, our commitment, our obligations to affordable housing.
Okay, thank you, Jon, very much.
Okay.
So just to remind people, there are 2 people running for Board of Selectmen, 1 position, and it's a 3-year term. That concludes the question and answer part of this forum. We want to thank Jon and Fran and Andrew and Ben and Kara and Dani for participating in this forum. What's going to follow now is just opening statements, an introductory statement, and a little bit about the job for the remaining candidates on the March 30th election that are running unopposed. So those are coming up next.
Hello, my name is Erika Amir-Lin, and I'm a candidate for Water Commissioner for the Acton Water District. I am just completing my first term as Water Commissioner, and I'm running for re-election to a second term. My reasons for running again are reflective of why I ran in the first place 3 years ago. When I originally ran, I was looking for a way to serve my community that would play to my strengths and let me use my water-related skills. I've been on the board for 3 years, and during that time, the Water District has seen significant challenges, including drought, the detection of PFAS in our water, and the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. I have been part of responding to these challenges, and I'm incredibly proud of how responsive our water district has been in putting forth proactive, scientifically sound solutions to these pressing problems. I am a licensed professional geologist and have been working in the earth and environmental sciences for my entire 17-year career. For the last 8 years, my professional work has been entirely focused on water resources, including drinking water. Currently, my job has me working at the American Water Works Association, which is a membership organization that provides technical assistance and education to utilities, consultants, and other groups working in the water sector. I spend considerable time working with our many members on issues related to how they communicate and disseminate information, and I'm always learning from their successes and their failures. Prior to my current position, I spent many years working as a hydrogeologist. All of my clients were municipalities in New Hampshire and Massachusetts, and I have become very, very familiar with the challenges that all water suppliers in the region, including here in Acton, face every day. I have some volunteer experience on the wastewater side of the water world and have been serving since 2017 as president of the board of the Nagog Treatment Facility. NTF is a small, user-owned wastewater treatment plant that serves the village of Nagog Woods and its surroundings. The users purchased the plant in 2016, and we have been working to repair and improve it ever since. Serving on the NTF board has given me an appreciation for the effort that goes into building and maintaining our critical infrastructure, and it's reinforced how important it is for a utility, no matter how big or how small, to be responsive to all of its users. Our water district here in Acton has only one mission, and that is delivering safe, reliable water to everyone connected to our system. I am devoted to this mission, and I am very much looking forward to a second term of continuing to work for the people who live in Acton and rely on us at the district to safeguard their precious water resources.
Hello, I'm Bernice Baran, and I'm running unopposed for another term, a 5-year term on the board of the Acton Housing Authority. The AHA, as we're usually known, owns and manages rental housing for families, for seniors, and for disabled people. Applicants who are already residents in the town, but who cannot afford their current living arrangements, are given priority when they ask for housing. I've been on the board for almost 20 years, and within that time, our accomplishments include building family housing on Sachem Way, also has purchased housing in developments such as Willow Central and the Meadows, and also has apartments which are rented to our tenants scattered throughout Acton in various condominium developments. Currently, the board is working on an important project. We want to and have purchased from the town already property on Main Street where Kennedy's Landscaping presently is. We have a proposal to build housing for seniors and disabled people on that land. We will be adjacent to an upcoming dog park, which will be right close to our property. I'm hoping that you'll support the cause of affordable housing in Acton. It's been supported by the town in the past, and really we are very grateful for the town's encouragement of our endeavors. Please remember to vote for me. My name again is Bernice Baran, and that will be on the ballot this year. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joanne Berry, and I'm running for my third term as town moderator. A successful town meeting is the culmination of the work of many people. Each article represents hundreds or thousands of volunteer and staff person hours spent gathering information, including input from residents, crunching numbers, holding public forums and making presentations, discussing and coming to consensus on the final form to be presented to voters at the annual or special session of the town's legislature, town meeting. In addition, many hours go into planning the flow and format of the meeting, including physical space, technology, and more recently, covering public health and safety concerns. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the school and town staff, including police, who planned and successfully managed both town meetings in 2020, the annual meeting in June and the special session in September. I'd also like to thank all the voters who accepted the challenges and came out to participate in our direct democracy. My goal as moderator is to have a fair and efficient meeting. It is true that this is an old form of governing and that it makes demands on voters that other aspects of our lives do not. Work schedules, childcare, transportation, and more all take energy and time that can push town meeting attendance lower on the priority list. Voters must be present to add their comments to the discussion and debate and to vote. Many have asked why there is not remote participation for this form of government, open town meeting, where any registered voter of the town has the opportunity to participate directly. At this time, Mass General laws do not allow it, and the current technology cannot ensure voter identification and vote security. Given that constraint, it is my intent to help people organize their time to prioritize their participation as best they can. Some things have already been tried and others have yet to be implemented. They include recording the video presentations ahead of time that are made available on ActonTV and YouTube. These can be viewed at voters' convenience. The presentations at the meeting itself are brief. Put more articles on the consent agenda and vote them as a block. These are recurring items that are not controversial. Individual articles may be held out at the request of voters at the meeting and voted separately. This allows questions to be answered or discussion to be had before the vote on that item. Schedule articles within a time range and end at a designated article for the first night and begin with the next article on the second night, if more than one night seems to be the best option to ensure participation on high interest articles. This will allow people to choose, if they have to, between two nights and to organize their schedule as much as possible to get to the meeting. However, one night may be enough, and that will be known ahead of time. The Town Meeting Improvement Committee formed and worked during 2019 to consider ways to make town meeting a better experience. One of the most popular ideas was to have a family-friendly room with an assistant moderator, video and audio that would allow full participation and for children to be with their parents. When we are able to return to the inside meeting, this is an idea that will be high on the list for implementation. I have served as town moderator through 2 special town meetings held in December 2019 and for the annual and special town meetings held inside and outside in June and September 2020. If you attended any of those meetings, I hope that you found them to be fair and efficient. Prior to that, I served as assistant moderator with Peter Ashton. Over the past 15 plus years, I have also moderated many League of Women Voters candidate forums for local office, statewide office, and Congress. I have lived in Acton since 1993, when my husband and I moved here with our 2 small children, who then attended the Acton Boxborough schools. I have attended every town meeting during that time. I'm quite sure I have not missed any. I served on the Acton and Acton Boxborough school committees from 2000 to 2006. This year's town meeting is scheduled to start on Monday, June 21st. I hope to see you there. I also encourage you to vote in this election on or before Tuesday, March 30th, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
My name is Pamela Lynn, and I wish to thank the League of Women Voters for the opportunity to introduce myself and explain why I'm running for a 3rd term as Memorial Library trustee. I am a retired social studies teacher from ABRHS. My decision to run 6 years ago resulted from serving on the Historic District Commission and the library's Long-Range Planning Committee. At that time, I was focused on the experiences of high school students, preservation of the gem, which is the original Memorial Library, and demographic changes taking place in Acton, not the normal trustee pathway through volunteering or professional library experience. I was struck then, as I am now, by the quality of services provided by both school and town departments in Acton, with relatively modest resources compared with the comparable towns nearby. In spite of the accomplishments of the respective entities, it seemed to me to enjoy little communication with each other, either in terms of mutual understanding or often cooperation. I have found that each trustee brings a special contribution, most often useful past experiences with libraries, but also others with deep appreciation of Acton's unique history, or a broad view of the arts, musical performance, or the law. I thought I could increase communication and collaboration with the schools, particularly the high school, and that has been a major focus for me since then. Prior to COVID, I was truly appreciative of the willingness of the library staff to entertain new strategies and arrangements to benefit students' access to the collection and use of space. I look forward to maintaining connections and cooperations where possible in the future. The reality of my current life transition also informs my priorities for the 3rd term. It tends to elicit a laugh or a gasp when I share with adults that I spent 45 consecutive years with 17-year-olds. No wonder I would be a natural advocate for them, but my more significant insight comes now from being acquainted with a large number of my own age mates. Acton's young senior citizens are proportionately the largest growing demographic group in town. Since my last election, I have joined the Acton Friends of Council of Aging, now as its secretary, affording an informed sense of the needs and desires of this group. During this interval, I have become a member of several adult book groups, 2 of which normally meet at the library, but now recently by Zoom. I quickly found myself a co-leader of both groups, providing the opportunity to think deeply about what the community aspect of the library means to individuals in our town over the lifespan. 2 years ago, I served on the committee to hire the new library director, and the entire group of trustees have enjoyed watching her grow into a confident leader, now supervising a generational staff transition. Working together as a team with a new assistant director, she was carefully evaluating how to update library services and practices when COVID hit. A traditional function of library trustees is to be an advocate on behalf of the library staff, program, and facility. In this capacity, I want to give a loud shout out to the Acton Memorial Library staff for the energy, innovation, and grace with which they have coped with difficult conditions now for almost a year. At the time of the director's last report, circulation was approximately 75% of what it was the same month last year. Think with me what that means from a staff perspective. Whereas a patron would bring a book to check out pre-COVID, and the staff member might touch it once. With COVID, it's quite possible that the staff member receiving the request by phone or online will touch the book at least 4 times, if not more. And then when it returns, it goes into quarantine. And what about the patron who asked for 50 books in one delivery in order to simulate their children? If you have benefited from the library's ability to adapt and to carry on during this period, please join with me in thanking the staff when you next have contact or are able to return in person. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Bill Mullin, and I'm running for the interesting position of moderator for the Acton Water District. Perhaps along with the air we breathe and safe and readily available and potable water is really essential to our human life and growth. And I believe that we should do everything we can to protect it and preserve this precious resource. So if I can play a small role in this, in helping ensure that the people of Acton continue to get available, abundant, potable, healthy water, then I'm delighted to do so. Now, of course, you people are all wondering, what in the world is the Acton Water District and why do they need a moderator? And so the Acton Water District is one of those New England functions that have grown up over many, many years, over 100 years. And the district was formed in 1912. It's separate from the town of Acton. It's a separate governmental entity. And it's just designed to provide water and fire protection for the inhabitants of Acton. The Acton Water District supplies 95% of the town with potable water, with 22 wells, and they're located in Acton's groundwaters aquifers. The governance of Acton Water District is just like the town, very similar. We have 3 commissioners, and they are elected. They're similar to the selectmen, select people. They represent the users. There's a finance committee, and all the decisions are made at an annual town meeting. And just like at town meeting, they need a moderator. My old friend, and probably some of you may know, Dick O'Brien, is retiring. He's only done this for 27 years, so I think he's okay. He's probably good that he can retire now. He mentioned when the post was open, and he asked me to run. And I'm excited to try to assist the district to run smoothly and transparently, so that all water users can have confidence in the district and their water supply. A brief bit about myself. I've been around town for a long time. I grew up in nearby Maynard. I received my bachelor's degree from Harvard and my MBA from the University of Chicago a long time ago, and I've been working and living in the area basically since that time. Just some quick highlights. I'm currently serving as an associate member of the Acton Water District Finance Committee, so I'm familiar with what's going on there. And all of the important issues. In the 90s, I served for 2 terms as a selectman. I have served for about 12 years on and off for the Acton Finance Committee, and I've done a bunch of charitable and civic affairs, including founding the Friends of Narrow Park. That's probably my signature achievement as a Board of Selectmen member. Friends of Morrison Farm, and I'm on a number of charities as well over the years, many, many charities. So I'm here in Acton. My wife and I have lived here for a long time. Our kids, Will, Maylee, and Leo, have grown up and left the nest, and they're all launched, so to speak, and we're very pleased about that. And so I just would like to once again play a little bit of a role in helping the town. And in this particular case, it's focused on the most critical of issues, which is how to protect our water supply. We need it to live, and it's over the next 50 years, it's just going to be one of those issues that's very critical. So if I can play a very small role in helping that by serving as the Acton Water District moderator, I would be delighted to do so. So I hope you'll vote for me. Now, the good news from my standpoint is I'm unopposed. So we'll see what happens as far as that. If I don't make this one, then I probably should hang it up. But anyway, thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell you a little bit about me and why this is an important role. And I hope you'll vote for me in the next upcoming election. And thank you very much.
That was our last candidate. On behalf of Lori Cooney, I'm Mark Ducey. Thank you for watching. We want to remind you once again that the Acton town election is coming up on Tuesday, March 30 at R.J. Gray Middle School. Mail-in voting is also an option. Just check the town website for instructions. This forum will be playing on Acton TV for most of March. It will also be available on demand on the Acton TV YouTube channel and website. Thanks for watching.